Assalamualaikum everyone, I'm Iman. Welcome back to our MERN Booking App series. In part 13 of our UI UX journey, we are building the search page. From the search bar, users can choose destination, guests and dates. On the results page, they'll filter hotels by rating, facilities and price, and sort by stars or nightly cost. Each hotel card will show an image, star rating, description, facilities, price per night and a view details button with hover effects for a polished feel. We'll also add pagination showing 5 hotels per page plus a heading with the total matches. And of course, we'll wrap up by pushing our code to GitHub. The best part, the page will be fully responsive. On mobile, filters collapse into a toggle at the top. Same goes for medium screens. On large screens, filters and cards display side by side. On extra larger screens, filters and cards display side by side with images on the left and info on the right. And at the end, we'll push the code to GitHub. It sounds like a lot, but don't worry, we'll build it step by step. Stick around till the end and you'll have a clean, interactive search page ready to go. Alright, let's dive in. Before we begin creating the search page, let's first create Edit Hotel page, since it will be the same as Add Hotels page. So inside Source and Pages folder, create a new file called edithotel.tsx. In here, create a component called editHotel, which will be an arrow function, and inside return statement, we'll simply import manage hotel form. Like this, let's save it and open up app.tsx file. In here, after the add hotel route, create a new route where path will be edit-hotel / and then we will have hotel ID like this, and for this path we will display an element. In here we will have layout component and inside we will nest our edit hotel component like this. Let's first export our component. So in here, export default edit hotel. Let's save it, and inside app.tsx, let's import it like this. Let's save our file and open up the terminal. Go inside booking folder and run npm run dev to start a local development server. Let's copy this link and paste it inside the browser. Here we have our website. In here, let's go to edit hotel / and let's search any number as a hotel ID and hit enter. Here we have our edit hotel page. Now we need to pre-populate it with existing data, but since we are creating the front end first and didn't have any backend yet, but when we will create the backend part, we will access the edit hotel data from the database and display it in here. Don't worry about it. Now let's start creating our search page. Inside Source Pages folder, create a new file called search.tsx. In here, create a component called search, which will be an arrow function, and inside return statement, we will have a parent container div, and inside we will have 2 child divs One will be for filter section and other will be for hotel cards section. And inside filter section div, we will create two more divs. Inside this first div, we will create filter section for small to medium screens, and inside this second div, we will create filters for large and onward screens. Let's create filter section for small screens first. So inside this div, we will create another div. Inside this div, we will create the filter that we want to show by default. And if the filter is open, we will display our code in here. So let's first create what we want to show by default. Let me show you an example. And inside this div, we will have filter by heading depending on whether the filter toggle is true or false. Okay? Now let's start creating it. So inside this div, we will have h3 heading and it will say filter by. And after this heading, we will have a div, and inside this div, we will show icons depending on the filter toggle state. So at the top of the file, before the return statement, create a state variable called filter toggle and the setter function set filter toggle, and let's import useStateHook from React. It will be type of boolean. Remember, we are using TypeScript and its default value will be false. Now in this div, inside curly braces, because we want to use JavaScript logic, in here we will say if filter toggle state is true, only then we will show this icon. So the icon will be AI outline menu fold. We have imported our icon from React Icons library. So if the filter toggle is true, we will show this icon. In here, we will check if filter toggle state is false. Then we will show an icon called AI outline menu unfold, and we have also imported it from React Icons. Now press Alt and click at the end of the icons, and in here let's give size to our icons, and size will be 26. After this, we will have an onClick attribute, and inside we will use our filter toggle setter function. If filter toggle state is true, so while it's opened and we will click on it, we will set its state to false so that our filter will be closed. And if the filter toggle state is false, so while it's closed and we will click on it, we will set its state to true so that our filter will be opened and we will be able to select them, and based on the filter, the hotels will be shown. Okay, I hope you understand it. So let's save our file and import our search component inside app.tsx. In here, after the My Hotels route, create a new route. For its path attribute, we will pass /search. So when the URL path will be /search, we will show the following element. So for the element attribute, we will display layout, and inside we will nest our search component. Okay? And if we go inside layout, it's the default layout that we will show in every page of our app. So it includes navbar, hero, search bar, and our children components, and after that we have footer. So this is the default layout. Now if we save it and inside the URL go to /search, we have forgotten to export our search component. So at the bottom of the file, we will export default and search component like this, and if we save it and refresh our page, we have this icon. I don't know. We have made some mistake in here. Let's see. Let's check if we imported our file correctly. Oh, I see. We have imported an icon instead of importing our file. Let's remove it and try to import it again. So we need to import our file from /pages/search. If we hit enter and save our file, as you can see, we have our filter by heading and our icon. And as you can see, if we click on our icon, it's changing. Now back in our search.tsx file, in here, we will have a condition. If filter toggle state is true, then we will show our filters in here. So in here, first let's create a div, and inside this div we will have all of our filters. We are building it like this for the smaller screens, but we want this filter to be hidden on the larger screens, because for the larger screens we will display the filter on the left side. So on this div that contains the filter section for smaller screens, we will use class name to style it. So when the screen breakpoint hits the larger screens and above, we will set this div to be hidden, and all of its nested children will be hidden. If we save it, and in here, when the breakpoint hits larger screens, our filter for smaller screens will be hidden. As you can see, let me show you an example of breakpoint so that it will be easier for you to understand it. If we set the breakpoint to SM and save it, as you can see, by default our filter will be shown, and when the screen hits the breakpoint of smaller screen, our filter will be hidden. So this is where we hit the small breakpoint. Now let's change it to MD. So medium breakpoint. As you can see, our filter is visible, and if we hit the breakpoint of medium screens, our filter will be hidden. As you can see. Now let's set it to XL. So extra large breakpoint. So if we check, this is where we hit the extra large breakpoint. Let's undo it for large screens and save our file. Now let's add our filters option. We will have different kinds of filter, and we will create a separate component for each kind, and then we will nest them inside this div. The approach we will take is, first we will create the structure of the component, and then we will define props and stuff, and then finally we will style it. Let's start by creating star rating filter. So inside components folder, create a new file called starratingfilter.tsx, and inside the file create a component called starRatingFilter, and inside return statement we will have a parent div, and inside we will have a h4 heading that will display the following text: property rating. Let's default export our file. Export default star rating filter. Save it, and inside search.tsx, inside this div, in here we will import our star rating filter component like this. And if we go to the browser and toggle the filter, here we have our heading. After the heading, object, because we will use JavaScript map method and define an array that we will map, and inside we will have numbers from 1 to 5 as a string. On this array we will chain map method, and for each star, or you can say for each number, and star text. For the input, let's give a type attribute, and its value will be checkbox. So basically the inputs type will be checkbox, and after that value attribute, and we will pass star as the value, and as you can see we have 5 checkboxes with the corresponding text. Now back in our search file, let's create a state variable that will store the state of the star rating checkbox. So before the filter toggle state, we will create a state variable called selected stars and set selected stars that we will import from use state, and its type will be an array of strings because we have multiple checkboxes, and its default value will be an empty array. Okay? To update a component with new data, two things need to happen. The first is retain the data between renders, and the second is trigger React to render the component with new data. The useState hook provides those two things: a state variable to retain the data between renders and a state setter function to update the variable and trigger React to render the component again. And its type will be an array of string, and it starts as an empty array. Now we will pass selected stars props to star rating filter component. So in here, selected stars, and we will pass selected stars. Okay? It represents the current state value of an array of strings that lives in the parent component. In React terms, we call this a controlled prop or simply a data prop. It's how the parent shares its state with the child. Now let's create an event handler function that will trigger when our checkbox input changes. So in here, after the states, in here we will have our handlers. Now in here, let's create a handler function called handle star change, and it will accept an event that will be type of react dot change event and HTML input element. Okay, and it will be an arrow function. We will create a variable called star rating and event dot target dot value. This will target the star rating tied to that checkbox. After this, we will use the setter function to change the state, and we have previous stars as a parameter. This is the previous state that will be passed to the setter function once the state changes. Event dot target dot checked, so whether the checkbox is checked, and we will use if-else ternary operator. If unchecked, remove that rating from the array using filter method. Let's save it. If it sounds confusing, let me help you understand this. Now if we uncheck a checkbox, we want to remove it from the previous state. So previous stars, these are the old values of our state on which we will use filter method to remove the unchecked checkbox. This method takes an array of items, passes them through a test. That's basically a function that returns true or false and returns a new array of only those items that passed the test. The test function looks like this. For each star in the previous state, we will check if that star is not equal to the star rating. Let me show you an example. So 1, 2, 5, 4, these are the checkboxes that the user has selected previously, and they have unchecked the fourth one. To remove it from the state, first the filter method checks the first star checkbox. It is not equal to the one the user has unchecked. The test returns true and we have the first checkbox. Then it will check the second star checkbox. It is not equal to the one the user has unchecked. The test returns true and we have the second checkbox. Then it will check the fifth star checkbox. It is not equal to the one the user has unchecked. The test returns true and we have the fifth checkbox. Then it will check the fourth star checkbox, but it is equal to the one the user has unchecked. The test returns false and it will filter out the fourth checkbox, and we will only have first, second and fifth checkbox in this state. I hope it's clear. Our star rating filter component receives selected stars, that is the current selected ratings, and it will also receive on change, and we will pass our handler function that we have just created so it can update the state when checkboxes are clicked. This is also a prop, but specifically it's a callback function prop. It allows the child star rating filter to notify the parent when something changes. In our case, a checkbox being toggled. In React patterns, this is often called an event handler prop or function prop. Putting it together, selected stars, a state value prop where data flows down from parent to child. On change, a callback prop where events flow up from child to parent. This is the classic controlled component pattern in React, where parent owns the selected star state and child star rating filter component receives the state and a way to update it, which is the onChange handler. Together, they keep the UI in sync. Let's save it. Now back in the star rating filter component, we will destructure them as props. So selected stars and onChange, and let's define their types. So before our function, create a type called props, and inside first we have selected stars, which will be an array of strings, and then we have onChange, which is the name of the prop, the function takes one parameter called event. That parameter is a React synthetic event specifically for an input element. This ensures TypeScript knows event.target will be an HTML input element, so we can safely access value and checked properties. This means the function doesn't return anything meaningful. Its return type is void. In React, event handlers usually just update state or trigger side effects and not return values. This type is saying onChange must be a function that takes an input change event and doesn't return anything. It's a callback prop type used to enforce that whoever uses the component provides a valid React input change handler. So it will be type of props. Okay. Now in the input, let's pass checked prop. I will explain it in a bit. And we will pass our onChange handler to it. Suppose we have checked 5-star and 4-star checkbox. So selected star state will check. It will return true. So the checkbox is checked. But for the 3-star checkbox, it will check if selected star state includes the 3rd star checkbox. It is false. So the checkbox is unchecked. This line is the glue that keeps the checkbox UI and the state array in sync. Without it, the checkbox wouldn't know whether it should appear checked based on the current selection. So when the user clicks Show Filter Toggle, the Set Filter Toggle state will be true and Filter UI will appear. And when the user checks 4 stars, selected star state will have the 4-star checkbox. User also checks 5-star and selected star state will have 5-star and 4-star checkbox. And if the user unchecks 4-star checkbox, selected stars will only include 5-star checkbox. Now let's save it. Now the same approach goes for the other filters as well. So make sure you understand it well, as I won't explain the same code again. Now first we will build the other filters and then we will style them all together. Now let's dive in. So inside components folder, create a new file called hoteltypesfilter.tsx. Let's go inside star rating filter and copy this code and paste it inside hotel types filter. Now let's make changes in here. Let's change our component name to hotel types filter and let's also change our state and this type. So it will be selected hotel types like this. Let's remove it. Let's change the heading to hotel types and in here remove the array of numbers and here we will import hotel types from @config/hoteloptionsconfig. If we go in here, these are the bunch of hotel types. At the end of the video, we will push our code to GitHub and I will provide the link to it in the video description so you can copy it from there. Now in here, let's change it. Now we are mapping those hotel types and for each hotel type we are displaying this label and input. Let's change its value to hotel type and also in here, and let's display hotel type in here. Let's save it. Now back in the search.tsx, let's copy this state and change the variable name to selected hotel types. Let's do the same in here. Set selected hotel types and it will also be an array of strings and its default value will be an empty array. Now let's copy this event handler and paste it. Let's rename our function's name. Now after the star rating filter component, let's import hotel types filter component. In here, let's pass its state, selected hotel types, and we will pass our state. Let's also pass our handler function, handle hotel type change. Let's save our file and go in here. Okay, in here we have destructured our props and make a use of them. Now if we open up our filter, as you can see here we have our hotel types heading and our types filter. Next, let's work on our facilities filter and this also will be the same. Next, let's build price filter. This one will be a little different. For price filter, we'll be able to select a price range. So let's start building it. Let's close our files, and in here, inside components folder, create a new file called pricefilter.tsx, and in here create a component called price filter, which will be an arrow function, and we will have return statement, and inside it we will have a parent div that will contain a heading and our select input. So we will have h for heading element, and for its text we will say max price, and after this heading we will have a select tag. Inside we will have two options. One will serve as a heading and other will serve as options. The heading will say select max price. After this, we will use an object, as we are going to use some JavaScript logic. Inside it, we will define an array of price range options, and we will chain map method on the array. Map method will loop through the array, and for each price, it will display the corresponding option. For its value attribute, we'll have price, and for this heading option, for the value, we'll have an empty string, because this option will serve as the heading. So that is the reason we don't need any value in here. That's why we have provided an empty string. And inside this option tag, first we will show a $sign, and then we will have our price. Now let's default export our component. So at the bottom of the file, we will say export default price filter. Let's save our file and go to search.tsx, and after the facilities filter, we will render our price filter component that we have imported from add/components/price filter. Let's save our file and go to our browser. As you can see, if we open up our max price option, as you can see, here are our options. Okay? Now let's create the state for our price filter to store the state of our options. So after selected facility state, we will create a new state variable called selected price, and setter function set selected price, which we will use from useState hook, and its default value will be a number. The type of our state will be number, and its default value will be 0. Now let's pass our state to the price filter component. So in here, we will pass selected price and pass our selected price state like this. And let's also pass an onChange handler function. For this filter, we will not have a separate handler function. Instead, in here, we will have an onChange functional prop. I will explain the code in a bit. Now let me explain the code. Selected price is the currently selected price, which is also optional. When the user selects a price, we will have value and its type will be number. OnChange is a function that takes a number as the value, which is optional, and it returns nothing. So these are the types that we have passed from the parent component. This is the mechanism for updating the parent state. The parent passes its state, selected price, down to the child. It also passes a function as onChange. This means whenever the child calls onChange, the parent state will update. Our state will either have the value that the user has selected, or if the user has selected none, we will simply pass 0. And inside price filter, the select element listens for changes, and we have passed value as selected price. When the user picks a new option, it will target event's value, that is a string, for example 200, and we will pass event's target value to the parseInt method. It converts the value to a number. You can say a plain number. If no value is selected, it passes undefined. Then it calls onChange, which triggers the parent's setSelectedPrice state. The onChange property is a callback function passed from the parent component to the price filter, which is a child component. It allows the child to communicate back to the parent whenever the user selects a new price range. Putting it together, the parent owns the state, child displays the state and lets the user change it. Child calls onChange when the user picks a new option. Parent updates its state via setSelectedPrice. This is the classic controlled component pattern in React, where the parent controls the value and the child notifies the parent when something changes. Let's see our example in Flow. If the user selects 300 in the drop-down, the event is triggered and onChange 300 is called inside price filter. Parents setSelectedPrice 300 runs. Parent re-renders with selected price 300. Child receives updated selected price and shows 300 as selected. In short, the onChange prop is the bridge between child and parent, allowing the child to trigger updates in the parent state when the drop-down changes. Let's save the code and check in the browser and toggle the filter. As you can see, we have our rating filter. Now inside search.tsx file, so as you know, for styling we are using Tailwind CSS. So for this parent div, we will have class name attribute. To style our filter section, grid to define a container element. Tailwind's grid system is based on a 12-column structure by default, but you can define any number of columns. So by default, grid calls 1, so this specifies the number of columns. By default, our filter section will be in vertical order, so basically in one column. I will explain this in a bit. Let me know in the comments if you want a tutorial on grid. LG, this is a responsive design prefix that ensures the style is applied only when the screen width is 1024 pixels or greater. Grid calls, this is the base utility for defining grid columns using the CSS grid template columns property. 250 pixels and 1 FR. This uses Tailwind's arbitrary value syntax, so square brackets, to specify a custom value for the grid template columns property. 250 pixel, the first column will have a fixed width of 250 pixels. 1 FR, the second column will take up the remaining available space in the grid container using the CSS fractional unit FR, which is designed to distribute free space. This is a common pattern for creating a layout with a fixed width sidebar and a main content area that expands to fill the rest of the screen on large displays. Let's save our file and check its responsiveness. Our filter will not appear on larger screens because we have set the filter to be hidden. But don't worry, we'll sort it out. And in here, let's also give gap of 5 to give some gap on the filter section, as you can see. Now this gap will be applied to our filter section and our hotel cards section, and it will apply gap of 1.25 rem, so 20 pixels. Now for this div that contains our filter section, let's have class name attribute, and we will have border to give border around our filter section, as you can see. Let's change its color, so border slate 400 to make our border a bit darker, and after that we will apply padding of 4 to apply padding on all the sides, as you can see, and on smaller screens and above we will apply padding of 5. Okay, so by default we will have padding of 4, but on smaller screens and above we will have padding of 5. Now for this div that contains our filter by heading and our toggle icons, let's style this div, and we will style this div based on whether the toggle is true or false. So inside curly braces we will check if filter toggle state is true. So if our filter section is opened, then we will apply the following properties, and let's also define our else to prevent the error. Items center to make our items center, and we will say justify between. Justify between will push our heading and icon to the corners of the screen. So if we save it, as you can see, so we have filter on the left side and our icon on the right side. Width full, so that it can take up the full width available to it. Border B to give some border on the bottom, and we will set its color to border slate 400. Let's also give padding on bottom of 4 to give some padding on the bottom of the heading. Now for the else block, so if our filter toggle state is false and our filter section is closed, so we have set flex items center to make our items center, and justify between to push our heading and icon to the corners of the screen, as you can see. And we will set width full so that our div can take up the full space available to it. Now for this heading, text LG to make our text bigger, font semi-bold to make our text a bit bolder. Now for this div that contains our icons on larger screens and above, we will set it to hidden because we don't want this filter to be shown on larger screens and above, because for larger screens we will create a separate filter section that will be visible on the left side of the screen. Now let's style our filters. So first of all we will style star rating filter. The styling for our filters are pretty simple, so let's style them. For this parent div, we will set border B, so border on the bottom side, and we will change its color to border slate 400. And we will set padding on y-axis of 3, so padding on top and bottom, as you can see. Now for our heading, we will set it to font semi-bold to bold our heading a bit, and we will set margin on the bottom of 2 to give some spacing between our heading and star rating checkboxes. And for this label, we will say class name attribute and we will set it to flex so that our checkboxes will be in vertical order, and we will set items to center so that our items will be in the center. So these classes will be applied to our input and our star text. Okay. So after this, we will set space on x-axis of 2 to give some spacing between our checkboxes and text. And for this input, class name, and we will set our checkboxes size to 5 to make them a bit bigger. Now let's style our hotel types filter. Our styling will be pretty similar. So class name, border on the bottom, and we will change its color border slate 400, and padding on y-axis, so on top and bottom of 3. And for this heading, class name, font semi-bold to make our text a bit bold, and margin on bottom of 2. Okay. And for this label, flex items center to make our items center, and space on x-axis of 2. And for our input, class name, we will give size of 5, as you can see. Now for our facilities filter, border on the bottom, and its color will be border slate 400, padding on y-axis 3, and for our heading, font semi-bold and margin on bottom of 2. Okay. And for this label, class name, flex items center, and space on x-axis will be 2. And for our input, size will be 5, as you can see. So now let's style our max price filter. So if we go in here, class name, we will set padding on y-axis of 3, so on top and bottom. And for our heading, we will set font semi-bold and margin on bottom of 2, like this. Now for our select tag, class name, padding will be 3, so to give some padding around our options, as you can see. And after this, we will say border to give some border around our price range, and we will change its color to border slate 400. And let's make the corners rounded, so rounded MD. As you can see, we have different utilities in here: SM, medium, LG, XL, 2XL. We will set rounded to MD, and width full, so that our price range will take up the full width available to it. And let's also change the outline of our price range. So to do that, outline, we will change its color to blue and its shade will be 600. So if we save it, as you can see, for the options we don't need anything. Now let's check if our filters are working. Okay, so they are working perfectly fine, and we can select multiple filters. Let's check its responsiveness. Okay, now let's create filter section for larger screens and above. The filters are the same, we just need to define little things. So inside this div, where we will define our filter for large and onward screens, and in here we will have our heading that will say filter by, and after this heading we will copy our filters and paste them after our heading. If we check in the browser, we have two filters. One is for smaller screens and we have set it to hidden for larger screens, and the other one is for large and above screens, so we have to hide it for medium and smaller screens. So in here, for this div, we will set the following class name. So this utility will hide the filter for every breakpoint below larger screens. As you can see, so that's it for the filters section. Next we will build hotel cards for search page. In here only those hotels will appear which meets the criteria of search and filter. We will build the logic when we create the backend part, so for now let's focus on the front end. Before displaying the hotel cards, we will show the total number of hotels that match the user's search criteria. This count will be generated in the backend since it depends on the specific search query. On the left side, we'll also provide sorting options. Users will be able to sort hotels by star rating and price per night. Price order will be either from low to high or high to low. So let's build our heading and sort by options. So let's start creating it. In this div for hotel cards section, we will create another child div that will contain a span for our heading, and after that we will have our select options input. Okay, so for this span we will say 12 hotels found, because we haven't started working on the backend yet, but after completing the front end, we'll move to building our backend. Inside this select element, we will have different options. The first option will serve as a heading, so sort by, and let's copy this option 3 times. The first option will be star rating, the second one will be price per night. Okay, and in here we will say from low to high, and for this option price, it's per night, and it will be from high to low. So user can select price per night either from low to high or high to low. So let's save it. As you can see, we have our heading and we have our sort by options. Now let's have some logic. Now in here, for the select tag, for the value we will provide sort option. Now let's create this state. So at the top of the file, after the filter toggle state, we will create a new state variable called sort option and set sort option. Its type will be string and its default value will be an empty string like this. Let's go in here. Okay, and we have provided the value, and we will have onChange attribute. So when the user will select a sort by option, and we will set sort option state to the event's target value, which is basically the option that user has selected. Now let's give value to other options as well. Since it will serve as a heading, for its value we will pass an empty string, and for our star rating value we will pass star rating. It will be inside a string instead of an object like this. For the price per night, we will have value price per night and it will be ascending order. Okay, so from low to high, and for this value we will provide price per night and it will be in descending order. Okay, so from high to low, let's save our file. Okay, as you can see, we have our options and it's working perfectly fine. As you can see, now let's style our heading and sort by option. So in here, for this parent div, we will set class name to flex and flex call and also gap of 5. So these classes will be applied to our heading sort by option so that our heading and sort by options will be on top and our search results card will be on bottom. So basically it will be in vertical order. Now for this div, we will say class name flex column. So in here on smaller screens it will be in column, but on smaller screens and above we will set it to row, so in horizontal order. If we save it, as you can see, by default they are in vertical order, but on smaller screens and above they will be in horizontal order. Okay, and also on smaller screens, since we have them in horizontal order, we have to give some space in here, so justify between like this, and also items center to make the items center and gap of 5. Okay, so this gap will be applied by default. If we remove it, as you can see. Okay, now let's style our heading. Class name text will be 2XL to make the text size bigger, and font will be bold to make our font weight to bold. Now for our options, after the on change we will have class name attribute. Let's give some padding of 2. Okay, and border, and let's change its color to slate 400. And also when we click on it, we want to change our outline color, so outline blue 600. Okay, as you can see. And for our options we don't need any styling. As you can see, it's pretty good. We'll now create the hotel cards. Each page will display 5 hotels with pagination available, so users can browse through additional hotels by navigating to other pages. Each hotel card will include the first image from the 6 uploaded by the admin when creating the hotel, hotel details on the right side, hotel name and star rating will be shown on one line, and location will be shown on the next line. A short description of the hotel. Below the description on the left side, 2 facilities will be displayed directly, and if there are more, will show +X more to indicate the additional facilities. On the right side, we'll have pricing and actions. Price per night will be on top and a view more button on the bottom. Now that we understand what we are going to build, let's dive in. First of all, we will need dummy hotel data so that we can show our search results card, because for now we are working on the front end and we don't have any back end or database to show the hotels. So for now we will use our dummy hotels data. So after importing star rating filter, we will import hotel data from data/test/hotel.json file. Let's try if we can do it like this. For example, let's try to use our alias. Okay, I guess we need to define some properties to be able to use aliases on our dummy hotels file with .json extension. But since we are using our dummy data for the front end only, Let's just undo it and use it like this. So if we go in here, let's collapse this div that contains our heading and sort options. So let's collapse it, and after this, inside curly braces, we will map our hotel data that we have just imported, and we will chain map method on it, and for each hotel we will display our search results card. Now we will create this component, but if we go in the hotel data, as you can see, this file includes dummy hotels data. At the end, we'll push our code to the GitHub, and I will provide the link of that in the video description so that you can copy it from there and you'll be able to follow along. Now in here, since we are using map method, we need to define a unique key to identify each hotel. So for now we will pass _ID since our IDs are unique, and let's also pass hotels so that we'll be able to use them inside our component. Now let's create our component. So inside components folder, create a new file called search results card.tsx. Okay, now let's start creating our component. In here we will create a component called search results card, and we will accept the hotel prop. So I'm talking about these hotels that we have just passed. Let's save our file, and it will be an arrow function. We have forgotten to add an equal sign, and in here we will have return statement, and for now let's have a div element, and let's default export our component. So export default search results card like this. Now let's define our hotel's prop type. So before our component, we will create a type called props, and in here we will say hotel will be type of hotel type that we will import from add/shared/types file, and in here we will say our hotel will be type of props. Okay, while importing any type, make sure to use type attribute in the import statement. So if we go to the hotel types, so these are the types. We have ID, user ID, key, name, city, country, description, type, adult count, child count, facilities, price per night, star rating, and image URLs. We have defined these types in one of the previous video. So let's close it, and now let's make a use of it. Now let's start creating our element using our hotels. So inside this div, we will have another child div that will contain an image element, and for its source attribute, we will use curly braces, and inside hotel dot image URLs, and we will show the first image. So if we go in here, let me open up dummy data file. So this is a single hotel, and in this array we have multiple image URLs. In here we are targeting the image URLs on the first index of the array. So this one, and after this div we will have another div, and this div will contain our information, and inside this div we will have another child div, and inside this we will have 3 more divs. So the first div will contain our hotel's name, star rating, and hotel's location. The second div will contain our hotel's description, and the third one will contain our hotel facilities, price per night, and our view details button. So let's build it. Inside the first div, we will have a link element that we will import from React Router DOM, and inside this link element, we will have two attributes. So where we want this link to redirect us, so inside curly braces and backticks, we will say /details /$ curly braces and the ID of our hotel. And inside this link, we will display our hotel's name. Okay, we are having an error. Let's import our link from React Router DOM. Now if we save our file and go to the search file, we are having an error in here. The problem is that we need to import our file like this, and we are having an error in here. The problem is that the key prop is being passed to the search results card component, but key is a reserved React prop and should not be included in the component's type definition. If we go to the shared folder and types.ts file, we need to remove the key type from the hotel type definition, since it's a React specific prop and not a component prop. So if we save our file and go back, we are still getting an error. Type object ID string is not assignable to type key null or undefined. The expected type comes from the property key, which is declared here on the type. So it's expecting that our ID property should be type of string, but it is wrapped inside an object. So inside testhotel.json file, what we can do is, in here we can fix the error by removing the object and simply assign string as the value. So let's remove the object. And now we are simply assigning string as the value. Now we need to do the same for other hotels as well. So let's select our ID property, keep pressing the Ctrl key and just press D key repeatedly until you can finally select all of them. And in here, let's remove the objects. Now we are simply assigning string as the value. But if we go in here, we are having some errors. Let's see. So let's remove this object. Like this. This must be because our ID string is different for every hotel. We just need to remove the object like this. Okay, so all of the errors are gone. Let's save our file and go back to our file. As you can see, our errors are gone. And let's see in here. So as you can see, we have our images and hotel's name. As you can see, we have the first image of every hotel and the hotel's name. Okay, now let's also get other informations as well. Let's close other files and go to our search results card. After this link, we will have our hotel facilities. So inside a span tag, I will explain the code in a bit. Okay, as you can see, our star rating is not in here. We have an error in the console. Encountered two children with the same key, so there must be duplicated keys. Let's copy it and search it in here. Okay, so we have duplicated. Let's change them. Okay, let's save our file and refresh our browser. Okay, so our star ratings are here. I don't know where is this error coming from, since on the price filter we are not using map method anywhere and we are not even using any key. So let's just ignore them for now. Now let me explain the code. Array.fromLength creates an array with a specific length. For example, if the star rating is 3, it will create 3 undefined slots. The array is created with the length of star rating, for example 3 numbers, that produces an array of 3 empty slots. Map method will iterate over the slots in the array and returns one AI fill star icon per index. The map method calls your function with 3 arguments: element, index, and array. Element is the current item in the array. Array, the whole array being mapped over. Index, the position of that item. And array, that is the whole array being mapped over. When mapping, the first argument element is always undefined. Since we don't need that value, we don't want to give it a meaningful name. Developers often use underscore as a placeholder variable name to signal, yes, there's an argument in here, but it's intentionally unused. We have used optional chaining to safely read star rating. If hotel is null or undefined, it returns undefined instead of throwing an error. So the underscore is used as a throwaway variable name for the first argument of map because the array elements are undefined and we don't need them. We only care about the index to render the correct number of stars. The underscore is used as a throwaway variable name for the first argument of map because the array elements are undefined and we don't need them. We only care about the index to render the correct number of stars. And while we are here, let's go to allinclusive.tsx. We have an error in here. The problem is that item.starRating might be a string instead of a number, but array.from method expects a number for the length property. We need to convert star rating to a number using number method. So let's apply number method to the star rating. Let's cut it and copy it inside our method. Okay, so if we save it, the error is gone. If we hover on the number method, so it's an object that represents a number of any kind. All JavaScript numbers are 64-bit floating point numbers. Okay, so let's close our file and let's save it. I hope you understand it. We have made a mistake in here. So as you know that this is the parent div. Inside it, this is the first div. This is the second div. And inside this div, we have mistakenly add these two divs. So what we can do is we can move it outside this div. So now if we look at it, this is the parent div and this is the first div that contains our image, and this div that will contain our information. And inside this div we have 3 sections, so the first one, second one and third one to contain different sections of our information. So this is the first section that contains our link, that contains our hotel's name, star rating. So we have created this one div so that our name and star rating will be in one line. And after this div that contains our link and star rating, we will create another div that will contain our hotel's location. So in here we will have curly braces, backticks, and we will have 2 of them, $, curly braces. In the first one we will have hotel.city, and in the second one we will have hotel.country. Okay, if we save it, and in here as you can see, first we have hotel city and secondly we have hotel country with a comma in the center, as you can see. Now let's close our first div and let's have some gap between them. And for the second div we will have hotel's description, and inside the last div, if we look at our finished example, as you can see, after the description on the left side of our information we have our facilities, and on the right side on top we will have hotel's price per night and a view details button. So let's create that. Now inside this div we will have 2 divs. One will contain our hotel facilities, and inside the second div we will have hotel's price per night and a button. So inside this first div we will have curly braces, and in here we will map our hotel's facilities. And for each facility we will show this span, and inside this span we will display the facility that is currently being mapped over. Now as you can see, for every hotel we will only show the first 2 facilities. So to get only 2 facilities, what we will do is, before the map method we will use slice method, and in here we will say from the 0 index to the second index we will slice the facilities and we will map them and show them inside this span. So if we save it and go to our browser, as you can see we have our 2 facilities in here, and same goes for other ones, as you can see. Now after this logic, inside another span, if we look at our example, we need to show this +2 more button, and in here from the total length of the facilities we will subtract the first 2 facilities, so these ones, and based on how many facilities are left we will show +x more button. Okay, so let's build this logic. So hotel dot facilities dot length, and if the length of the facilities is greater than 2, only then we will show what's inside this backtick. So inside this backtick I can't seem to find the plus icon because my keyboard is messed up. So here is it. So we will show plus sign, and after this we will have $, curly braces, and in here we will say hotel facilities dot length, and we will minus 2 facilities and after a space we will show more text. Okay, let me explain this logic. So in here, as you know, we are slicing the first two facilities and displaying them in here, and inside this span what we are basically doing is we are checking if the facility's length greater than 2, then we will show this text that basically says from the total length of the facilities we are subtracting the first two facilities, because as you know we have displayed them in here, and depending on the rest of the facilities we will say plus and x number of more facilities. So if we save our code and go to our browser, as you can see we have two facilities in here and we have two more, so we will say plus 2 more to indicate that we have two more facilities. So I have choose this design because on the smaller screens we only have space to display two facilities. Okay, let's see. For every hotel we have two more facilities. What we can do is go inside test-hotel.json, and for the first div let's add an other facility. Let's say outdoor pool, and save our file. And if we go in here, as you can see for the second hotel we are displaying two facilities, so airport shuttle and family rooms, and for the rest of the facilities we are showing the text plus 3 more to indicate the user that this hotel contains 3 more facilities. Now let's go back in our file. So after this div that contains our facility and text, inside this div we will have a span, and after that we have a link. Okay, so inside this span we will show hotel's price per night, so hotel dot price per night, and after that we will have some spacing, and after this still inside this span we will have another span that will contain the text per night. Oops. If we save it, as you can see, first we have our hotel's price per night and then we have per night text. Okay, and for this link, for the to attribute inside backtick, so where we want this link to redirect us, it will direct us to the details page of a particular hotel. So hotel dot underscore id, this link will serve as a button, so inside this link we will display the text view details button. If we save it, as you can see in here we have view details button. Since we haven't created the details page of our hotels, for now this link will direct us to the home page. So let's see, we have our image, name, star rating, location, description, facilities and price per night, and also a view details button. Now let's unleash the power of styling. Now let me collapse them so we can style one element at a time. So we have our parent div and these two divs. Now let's start by styling this div. So as you can see on the left side of our card we have the hotel's image, and on the right side we have the information. So to achieve this layout we will use what's called a grid. So in here, let's go back. We will have class name attribute, and by default grids column will be 1. So if we go to the small screens, we want to show everything inside a card in a 1 column, but on the extra larger screens and above, we will have grid calls. The first column will take 2 parts of our space, and the second column will take up 3 parts of our space. So I have explained this property before. If we save our file, it's not call, it's calls. And if we save our file, and let's also provide border to understand better. So we will have border, and for its color, let's say border slate, and its shade will be 400. Let's save our file. So as you can see, we have 2 plus 3, 5 columns. So the first div will take up 2 parts of our cards, and the second div, which is the information, will take up the 3 parts of our card. Okay? Now after this border, when we hover on our card, we want to show shadow of MD. Let's save it, and if we hover on our card, as you can see, we have a border. Let's change its color. So hover, shadow, its color will be blue, and its shade will be 200. If we save it, as you can see, it's much better now. Now after this, by default, we want the scale of our card to be 95, and when we hover on it, we will increase the scale of our card to 100. If we save it, as you can see, by default its scale will be 95, and when we hover on it, its scale will be 100. As you can see, the transition is not very smooth. To make it smooth, what we can do is add a property called transition. If we save it, now it's much better. Let's give some space inside our cards. Padding of 3, but on larger screens and above, we will have padding of 5. Okay, let's also give gap between the image and information. So gap of 6, like this. Now for this div, we will have class name width full, so that it will take up the full width available to it, and for the height of the image, we will have 315 pixel. If we save it, as you can see, the height of our image is not changing. To do that, we need to define a class inside this image. So class name, we will set its width to full and also height full, so that this property will take effect. If we save our file, as you can see, it's taking up 315 pixel of the height. After this, we will say rounded MD to make the corners rounded of our image, like this, and object cover, so that the image fit its parent container, as you can see. And after this, we will have object center, so that the focus will be in the center of the image. If we save it, now let's style this div that contains our information. Class name, grid, rows, so that our information will be in vertical order. So as you can see, inside this div, we have 3 children divs. Let me explain what these properties do. Grid, we have grid property to define a container element. This property defines 3 rows in a CSS grid. Each row gets a size based on the FR unit. FR's full form is fractional unit. First row takes 0.7 parts of available space, second row takes 2 parts, and third row takes 1.5 parts. So the ratio of row heights is 0.7, 2 and 1.5. At small screens and above, the rows change to first row takes 1 part, second row takes 2 parts, and third row takes 1 part. So in short, this Tailwind utility is telling the grid by default make 3 rows with height proportional to 0.7, 2 and 1.5, and on small screens and up switch to 3 rows with height proportional to 1, 2 and 1. Okay, I hope you understand it. So these are basically 3 parts. So depending on this utility, our information will take up the following space. Now before moving any further, let's create pagination functionality. So inside components folder, create a new file called pagination.tsx, and in here create an arrow function called pagination. And inside return statement, we will just render a div, and let's export default our component. Export default pagination. Now before the return statement, create a variable called page numbers and assign an empty array to it. After that, create a for loop, and inside we have created a variable called I and assign one number to it, and we will check if i's value is less than or equal to the number of pages. Continue the loop and push the number to the page numbers array. Now let's define pages props, but first let's import pagination component inside search.tsx. So let's save this file and go to search.tsx file. Inside hotel cards section, after rendering search results card, we will render our pagination component. To define a page prop, let's go before the return statement. In here, we will create a variable called pagination. It will be lowercase, and we will assign a number 3. Okay, so these are number of pages. For now we will use dummy pagination, but later when we fetch the real data, we will change these. Now let's pass this variable as a value to the page prop. So in here, for the page prop, we will pass our pagination variable. Now it will either be pagination or 1 if there is no pagination. After this, we will have another prop called pages, and it will either be pagination or 1. Let's save our file. Now back in the pagination.tsx file, let's destructure the props that we have passed. So in here, we have passed page and pages. Let's define props type. So in here, we will export our type. The name will be props. Page will be type of number, and pages will also be type of number. Okay. Now inside the return statement, we will have a container div that will contain an unordered list tag, and inside on the page numbers array, we will apply map method, and for each number, we will have a list item that will contain a button element, and inside it we will display the number. Okay, let's save our file and go to the bottom of our page. As you can see, we have our pagination. Now on this button element, we will have an on-click attribute. Let's create the on-click handler. For that, let's go to search file and at the top, create a new state variable called page. Its type will be number and default value will be 1. Okay, and in here pass the functional prop called onPageChange. In here we will have the page that the user has pressed, and using the setPageState we will update the state. Okay. Now let's save our file and go to pagination.tsx file, and in here let's also destructure onPageChange prop, and let's define its type. It will accept page, and our function will return void, means nothing. So in here let's call our onPageChange handler function and we will pass the number. Let's save our file. How this pagination will work will be based on what the user has searched. We will show the hotel cards, and depending on the number of the hotels, we will have different number of pages. So for example, when the user click button of page number 3, the onClicks onPageChange function fires. onPageChange calls setPageState in the parent state updates and page becomes 3. Then React re-renders and pagination component receives updated page prop and UI reflects the new active page. Okay, I hope you understand how it works. And we will make a use of the page prop while styling our component. So first, let's start by styling our information. So back in the search results card, so let's style our description. Class name max sm my of 4. Max SM will apply this property to breakpoints before smaller screens. That's what it says, that max SM. So before the screen hits the breakpoint of SM, we will apply margin on y-axis of 4. And inside this div, we will have another div. And let's cut our description and paste it inside this div. And in here, we will have class name called line clamp, 6. So line clamp 6 will show 6 lines and clamp or hide rest of the lines. So if we save our file, as you can see, it will display 6 lines and will clamp rest of the lines. Now for this div that contains 2 divs, one will be for facilities and other will be for the price per night and view details button. So for this div, class name grid, and by default grid columns will be 1, but on smaller screens and above we will change grid columns to 2. If we save our file, by default our facilities and this div will be displayed in 1 column, but on smaller screens and above they will be shown in 2 columns. And after this, items end. So this property will push our elements to the end of the cart, and after that we will have a property called white space no wrap. If we save it, we have applied this property to prevent the text from wrapping within an element and new lines and spaces will be collapsed. And for this div that contains our facilities, flex and gap of 1 to give some gap between our facilities and plus 2 more text, items center to make the items in the center, and for this facility span we will say class name, and let's give background to our facilities bg slate and its shade will be 200 like this, and let's reduce its opacity, so bg opacity to 80%. Okay, and after this padding of 2 to give padding of 2 on all axes and padding on x-axis, so on left and right will be 4 like this. Let's make the corners of our facilities rounded. Font bold and text will be SM like this, and for the span class name text SM to make the text more smaller, and let's give some margin on the left side, so margin on left side will be 1. Let's save it. Okay, it's much better. Now for this div that contains our price per night and view details button, let's say class name flex column, so that our elements will be in column, items end to push our items on the end of the cart, and gap of 1 to give some gap between our elements, and for our price per night text let's add class name, font will be bold and text will be large. If we save it, as you can see, and for the per night text we will make it semi bold like this, and for this link class name font semi bold, text will be extra large like this. Let's give background to our link because it will serve as a button, so background, and we will apply gradient to the right side, and in here we will say it will start from blue 600 and it will end to purple 400. So if we save our file, as you can see, So we have applied the gradient to the right side. It will start from blue and it will end to purple. Text white. To make the text color white, and let's give padding to it. Padding of 2 and padding on x-axis will be 4. Like this. Let's give border to our button. So border of 2, and let's change its color. Border blue 700 like this. And when we hover on our button, we want its opacity to be 95. Let's save it. And when we hover on our button, it will reduce the opacity to 95. Okay? And if the button is disabled, we will set its background to gray 400. We have forgot to style our name, star rating and location, so let's style it. So if we go to the top, it is this div that contains our information elements. So we don't have to style this div. So for this link that contains our link and star rating, we will say class name flex to make the hotel's name and star rating in one line, and items center to make the items center, and we will give gap between them of 2 like this. And for this link, class name text 2XL to make our hotel's name bigger like this. Font will be bold and cursor pointer. So when we hover over the hotel's name, our cursor will turn into pointer. And when we hover on it, we want the text to be blue 600. So if we save it, and when we hover on it, as you can see, the text color changes to blue. And for this span that contains our star rating, we will say flex to make the rating in one line. Okay, so for the hotel's location, we will say font semi-bold, and let's change text color to blue like this. So that's it for our cards. Now let's style our pagination. So in this file, for this div, let's say flex to make our numbers in one line, and we will say justify center to center our numbers in horizontal order. And for our unordered list, class name flex like this. Let's give border, and border color will be slate 300 like this. And for this list item, we will apply class name based on the active page. So inside backticks, by default we will say padding on x-axis will be 2 and padding on y-axis will be 1. And let's give border on the x-axis. So border x like this, and let's change its color to border gray 200. Okay, now after this, inside $sign curly braces, because we want to apply multiple logic, so by default this logic will be applied. And since we are inside backticks, we need to use $sign curly braces, and inside we will have a statement. So if the page is equal to the number, then we will apply these styles, else we will apply this. So if the number is equal to the active page, we will apply background of gray 200, else we will leave it empty. So as you can see, the page number 3 is active, because if we go to the search file, as you can see, we have provided 3 number as the value. If we change it to 1, so there will be only one number of page and it will be active. Let's undo it. Now as you can see, our filter section is displaying all the way to the end. So to fix this, what we can do is, on this div inside filter section, we will apply a class name called height fit. So as you can see, now the height of our filter is fit, so it's not going all the way to the end. And after this, let's say on larger screens and above, we want our filter section to be sticky, and we will have class name of top 7. So if we scroll and when we are on the top, it will make our filter section sticky. So if we move, as you can see, but there's one more problem, that is we have to scroll all the way end to be able to select the facilities and max price filter, and it's not a good user experience. To make it good, we can show a scroll bar that the user can scroll to see all of the filters without going all the way end of the screen. So on the second div, we will apply the following class names: overflow auto, add scroll bars automatically if the content overflows the container. If the content fits, no scroll bar is shown. If it exceeds the container, scroll bars appears. Max height 93 VH limits the container's maximum height to 93% of the viewport height. It ensures the element doesn't grow taller than the screen, keeping it scrollable instead of overflowing off screen. This utility targets the scroll bar itself only in WebKit based browsers like Chrome, Edge or Safari, and it sets the scroll bar width to 1.5, which is 6 pixels. This makes the scroll bar slimmer than the default. This property styles the scroll bar thumb, which is the draggable part, and it applies background of gray, which makes the thumb visible against the track, and this property applies the background of gray to the track of the scroll bar. Let's save our file. A scroll bar container that never exceeds 93% of the viewport height. A custom minimal scroll bar with slim width, light track and slightly darker thumb compared to the default chunky scroll bar. So now user don't have to scroll all the way end to be able to select all the filters, and user can scroll from here and can select multiple filters. Okay, so as you can see, our UI is much better now and it's much more cleaner and it's looking so much better. Oh my, it's looking so nice. As you can see, now let's check its responsiveness. So by default it will look like this. As you can see, the filter doesn't exceed and it only takes 93% of the viewport height. So let's check on smaller screens. It will look like this. On medium screens, on larger screens, and on extra larger screens. Okay, now let's push our code to GitHub. Let's open up Visual Studio Code and close our files. And in here, if we go to the source control, first we need to stage all changes. Then we have to write a message. Let's say creating search page UI. If we click on more actions button, we will press commit and push. Now this will push our code to the GitHub. So as you can see, here's our latest commit, creating search page UI. Let's go to our GitHub, and if we go to our project, as you can see, here's our latest commit. And I will provide this GitHub link in the video description, so you can check it out. And that's it. Our search page is complete. Users can now filter hotels, sort results, browse clean hotel cards, and move through pages with ease. For now, we are working with dummy data to nail the front end. In upcoming videos, we'll connect everything to the backend, so real user-created hotels show up here. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to UI Universe so you don't miss the next part of the series. So until next time, take care, bye bye.